So my water heater has been making a bunch of popping noises, and the hot water runs out pretty quickly after I turn the shower on. Not super quick, but quick enough. This is an A.O. Smith 40-gallon water heater. Pro Max Plus, high efficiency, probably about 2005, 2006. And the plan for today is to service this water heater. Now, what do I mean by service? I mean, I'm gonna replace a dip tube. And for those of you that don't know, this is an extension of the cold water line as it comes down to the water heater. There's actually a plastic tube that takes that cold water all the way to the bottom where the burner is. And so the cold water sits right next to the burner, heats up. It then goes up because the hotter the water is, the higher it goes. And then the outlet, it sits next to the outlet, which is at the top of the water heater. And so when you turn the hot water on, the hot water shoots up through the outlet. So cold water at the bottom, hot water at the top, and that's how you get the hot water. Now what happens with this dip tube, it's plastic and it deteriorates over time. So what can happen is it can actually snap off halfway. And so instead of taking the cold water all the way down to the burner, it takes it only partially down in the tank. And so you get this cold water mixing with the hot at the top. So when you turn the hot water on, you get the mix instead of just the pure hot water which should be sitting up here. So that's one piece. I'll take you over here now and I'll show you the other ones. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna be replacing. The dip tube is the blue pipe right there. And as I mentioned, the cold water comes into this end and travels all the way to the bottom of the dip tube. And it's curved at the bottom so that it could swirl the cold water there. Now, and also so that it doesn't just sit flush against the bottom, right? The other piece I'm going to be replacing is this anode rod. And what this does is it takes all the kind of contaminants or it just absorbs the attack of all the water. So the water heater doesn't rust. Instead, this anode rod gets consumed by all the minerals and the particles in the water, and your actual tank stays pretty fresh. Next, I'm gonna flush all the sediment out from the water heater. And in order to do that, I got this ball valve. Now, what's different about this ball valve, instead of just the drain valve that's on the water heater, is that it's full bore. Let me show you what that means. So, if I were to take this cap off here, you could see there is no obstruction at all, right? There's nothing preventing any of the sediment that's sitting at the bottom of the water heater, to flow out. The drain valve that's currently on there would not have this type of diameter clean passage. So it's very important to get a ball valve like this to be able to flush your water heater effectively. Now, the way this works is you need a nipple. So a nipple would thread into here, and then this would thread into where the existing drain valve is, and that's how you're then able to manipulate the valve and let the water flow out. So these are kind of the key pieces that you need: the dip tube, the anode rod, drain valve, and to connect all that drain valve and everything else, recommend some Teflon tape. Hopefully the only tools I need here are just a couple of wrenches, and that should do me. So let's get started. All right, next we're gonna proceed to turn the gas off, turn the water heater off, shut the gas valve. Next, we'll need to drain all the hot water that's currently in the water heater out. Remember, I need to do two things. One is to flush all the sediment out, and the other is I want to make sure that when I take the pipes off the top, that I don't get burned, right, by the hot water. So if I was just replacing the dip tube and the anode rod, I could just drain it a little bit, but because I want to flush everything out anyway, I'm going to drain a little bit more and continue flushing until all the sediment's out. So one thing we'll need to do is we'll shut the cold water off on top. We'll attach a water hose, garden hose, to the current drain valve here. And then we'll open the pressure valve. There it is on top. And that will release the back pressure or the vacuum on the water heater and allow everything to drain out of the bottom. So again, we'll shut the cold water off, attach water hose, open the vacuum valve, and then we'll go ahead and open the drain so it could go ahead and drain out to the outside. Okay, so we've shut the water off, we've connected a garden hose, we've opened the pressure relief valve to relieve vacuum. So now let's open the drain valve. Now obviously water in here is very hot, so be careful. And the other part is because of how much sediment I have in here, I'm not confident I'm gonna get any drainage because this valve here, it just clogs very easily, right? That's why you need the ball valve. So we'll open it up, we'll walk to the other side of the hose and see what's coming out. Let's check it out. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of drainage and actually not that much sediment. It's not burning hot, it's just warm. So I'll need to let this drain out because if I take the valve off the bottom, obviously all the water will come rushing out in my garage. So I need the water heater to be actually completely empty before I can replace the valve. For now, let's go ahead and put that ball valve together. All right, one key piece to keep in mind is that this shank that sits inside the water heater has to be the right length. Now I read the specs on my water heater, and the original valve that's on there, the drain valve, has a 2-inch shank. So I'm hoping that this will work. If not, we're gonna have to go back to the supply store and get something longer. And I'm really hoping that's not the case. So to put this together, let's put some Teflon tape on the threads. These are coarse threads, so I'm going to be a little bit more liberal with the tape than I otherwise might be. It's also good to wind it in a direction where when you screw this in, you're not going against it, so they'll pull the tape off. This way I'll just tighten everything up. All right. And let's just thread it in here by hand for now. And then we'll take the pipe wrench and this guy. Try to stay off the threads as much as possible. That's probably tight enough. Now we'll do the same. We'll add Teflon tape to these threads, and this will be ready to go ahead and insert into the water heater. While the water here is still draining, let's proceed to remove the cold water side, because this right here is where the dip tube is. So we'll take off the cold water line and we'll replace the dip tube right now. Alright, it's a bit tight in here and I have to film one-handed and do the work one-handed, so bear with me. Cold water is obviously shut off. Grab a rag in case we get a lot of water out of here, which I don't expect. Something tells me that this is now all the way off. It just needs to be lifted up. Let's try that. Okay. Just getting some of the water that's in the section of pipe coming out. I don't know if there's sediment blocking the valve from closing all the way or what. I wouldn't expect this much water just to keep coming. Let's do this. All right, let's see if we can get this dip tube out of here. They do seize up, so. Sorry for the shakes. All right, I need some leverage. So a way to do that would be to put a nice long pipe on the wrench. But as you can see, I was trying to do this without taking the water heater off the stand. All right, so I can't get any leverage on the dip tube here. So what I'm gonna try to do is take the flue off, secure it up there, and then take this cap off so I could get the wrench facing this way, try to put a pipe on the handle and see if I could get more leverage to take the fitting off. Let's see if we get some leverage using this pipe here. Wowie wow. Not even close to breaking this loose. Okay, to replace the drain valve, we'll first take off the garden hose. All right, this valve was a bit of a bear to break, but I just took my pipe wrench here and put it on the bottom and kind of deadlift this thing. Sorry for the shaky video. It's tight space, I have nowhere to put the camera. So doing everything one-handed here. All right, got it pointed sideways now. Fascinating. We'll clean that out a little bit and then we'll try to thread the ball valve in. You could see some of that sediment that's in there. All right, I think that's about as tight as she needs to go. So I guess she needs to go higher because I can't close it. There we go, got clearance against the gas valve here, and it closes all the way. So that's done. All right, I've been messing with this dip tube for like an hour at least. Busted knuckles and all that good stuff, and I couldn't get it out. So I tried the oldie but goodie now. I went to tighten it because I could get more leverage. I have more room on this side away from the wall to tighten it with the pipe wrench, and it finally budged. So now I was able to break it loose by tightening it, and now it's turning on me. You could see it began to actually collapse and took on an oval shape. But this is absolute bear, so you know it would be much easier if the water heater was down away from the wall. I could get a cheater bar on it, whatever, but in my situation, I had to mess around with it, put some WD-40 on it, and I just hammered it. I mean, I tried everything, and finally it dawned on me I could just try to tighten it up a little bit and then loosen it, and that's what worked. Well, maybe I spoke too soon. There's a dip tube right there. It didn't work at all. It just busted right off the nipple. So, next phase we'll try to punch that old dip tube down in there and just let it hang out inside the tank and put the new one in.